And speaking of support, America's support to Israel could be wavering. It's taken 62 days and 16,000 deaths. It looks like Joe Biden is softening his stand. Again, how do we know? Because of some new policies. The White House has announced a new travel ban on Israeli settlers. These are people living in the West Bank. If they engage in violence, the US will not give them visas. That's the new policy. And to be fair, it was coming. Settler violence has been on the rise since the Hamas attack. Daily attacks have doubled since October. So now the US is cracking down.
Levels not seen since the Second Intifada. And in recent weeks, an alarming surge in violent acts has driven this unwelcome record even higher. Under this policy, the United States will pursue visa restrictions against individuals involved in or meaningfully contributing to the undermining of peace, security, or stability in the West Bank.
It may not seem like very much, but this travel ban is a big political statement. It is the first red line drawn by the US. Until now, that was not the case. Biden had given Prime Minister Netanyahu a free hand. Airstrikes, ground offensive, hostage release, everything was done based on Netanyahu's wishes. Maybe not anymore. Biden's top officials have changed their tone. Like Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin. He spoke at a military conference this week. Listen to his message for Israel.
You see, in this kind of a fight, the center of gravity is the civilian population. And if you drive them into the arms of the enemy, you replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat. So I have repeatedly made clear to Israel's leaders that protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza is both a moral responsibility and a strategic imperative.
Vice President Kamala Harris went one step ahead. She was at the COP28 summit this week. Like Austin, Harris also drew a red line for Israel. Listen in.
International humanitarian law must be respected. Too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Frankly, the scale of civilian suffering and the images and videos coming from Gaza are devastating. 5 principles guide our approach for post-conflict Gaza. No forcible displacement, no reoccupation, no siege or blockade, no reduction in territory, and no use of Gaza as a platform for terrorism.
So to recap, don't target civilians, don't push Palestinians out of Gaza, don't occupy the Strip, and don't promote violence in the West Bank. Those are America's red lines. Will Israel agree to them? Netanyahu keeps saying that he will protect civilians, that he will only target Hamas. Yet, more than 16,000 civilians are dead, out of which more than 6,000 are children, and Israel is not done yet. They're now targeting southern Gaza. Tanks and soldiers have reached the city of Khan Yunis. Reports say there is house-to-house fighting. So chances are more civilians will die. Critics say America's policy change has taken too much time. Nonetheless, let's look at why it's happening now. One reason is obviously the scale of destruction. Gaza is almost unrecognizable. Around 1.8 million people have been forced to flee, which is 80% of their total population. You can't just keep ignoring that. So concern is one reason, but a bigger factor is politics. Biden is heading into an election next year, and his support for Israel seems to be backfiring. Let me show you what a poll found this week. 63% Democrats oppose Israel's campaign in Gaza. 63% oppose. Among younger adults, it's 67%. And among voters of color, it's 64%, which is a big headache for President Joe Biden. His voting base is mainly young and minority voters, but most of them do not like what Israel is doing. And it could cost him the White House. There are more than 3.5 million Muslims in the US. Around 2 million are Arab Americans. If they abandon Biden, he could lose next year. Some Muslim groups have already declared their position. No votes for Joe Biden.
We are announcing that President Biden has lost the 2024 election. We are not powerless as American Muslims. We are powerful. We don't only have the money, but we have the actual votes. And we will use that vote to save this nation from itself.
tells you why Biden is worried. He won a lot of states by a very small margin the last time, like Michigan, for example. Biden won Michigan by 150,000 votes in 2020. 150,000 votes. And how many Arab Americans does the state have? Around 280,000. It's the same in Arizona and Georgia. So Biden's changing tone is political. The question is, how does it affect Israel and Netanyahu? They don't need US military or their help to win this war. But beyond that, they do need Washington to replenish their arsenal, to repair ties with Arab states, and to shield them at the United Nations Security Council. So it's a tough one for Netanyahu. Only a complete destruction of Hamas can salvage his political career. But if Joe Biden puts his foot down, he may have to cease fire.